All right, boys, so we've gotten pretty much all the information for 3.20, the Forbidden Sanctum, and I'm going to say it looks pretty decent. I'm not like completely overwhelmed, but there's a lot of really good stuff in here. And in this video, we are going to go over the patch notes. Now, there's not a ton in the patch notes, but there's a bunch of pretty impactful stuff. We're going to be skipping past all the stuff that was in the manifestos, unless it is relevant. Going to skip over most of the like stuff with the new league. We're going to be talking about the changes that you need to hear about because let's be real, they slaughtered a bunch of builds, and I don't exactly know that we really got very much meaningful change, if I'm going to be honest with you. The biggest thing that I've been looking for in these leagues over the last however long is like a big meta shakeup. Now, a lot of the time nerfs do cause meta shakeups, and that's fine, but it doesn't really genuinely feel like there's going to be a huge shift in meta because of this. The new abilities look okay, a lot of the other stuff looks okay, but we'll go over that in more detail in another video. So remember, boys, if you're enjoying this content, make sure to give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit that notification bell to stay up to date with all the latest videos. And without further ado, let's get into it. All right, so the goal here is to get through this quickly, give you the information that you are interested in, and skip most of the rest of the stuff. So we're going to go through here. The new 3-month challenge league. The Forbidden Sanctum looks pretty good. It's a roguelike. It should be pretty fun. I'll make a video with my thoughts about that specifically. As for new content and features, we've got Ruthless. Already talked about that a little bit in a post. We have a new ability called Frozen Legion. I am hesitant on this one. I think it's going to be good, and I think with the way that a lot of things are changing, with, say, some of those new uniques that we're getting, like specifically at Ziri's weapon, Frozen Legion, there might be something here. This seems like it's going to be a secondary skill, like you'll have to have 2 6 links for this to really be super useful. I don't think you can use it as a main ability. Maybe you might be able to, but it's got a cooldown and you can only have so many going at one time. It can't be triggered, can't be supported by Spell Echo, can't be supported by Unleash or any of those other kinds of things. This is like a melee spell, so we'll see. I'm not exactly sure. Volcanic Fissure is a slam. Kind of all that you really need to know about it. It's probably okay. The numbers will probably be good, but it's a slam, so you got to be okay with it being a slam. They've added in Cursed Ground support, which is basically just making like, you know, a area of cursed ground. That's okay. We've got Hex Bloom. This is kind of like a proliferate on death hex support, which is pretty cool. We have a bunch of new Vol gems. There are a few things in here that might actually cause potentially some new builds and such to pop up. Particularly interesting is the fact that they are really going in deep on Vol Cleave. Think of Vol Cleave the exact same way that Vol Reeve is right now. If you like the way that Vol Reeve currently works, Vol Cleave does the exact same thing. Vol Flicker Strike honestly looks bad. I don't know how I feel about it, because the thing about it is what Vol Flicker Strike does is it basically just makes you flicker 25 times. But the problem is that it says that it doesn't cause you to actually do damage until you're done with the flickers. So my issue here is that most of the time when you're flicker striking, you're killing the enemies that you're running into, right? If you're not doing any damage until the 25 flickers are over, there's a pretty big chance that when you just release into the void, you're just gonna die before the flickers are done, or you're gonna take a bunch of damage or something and you can't stop it. Maybe it'll be good on bosses. Maybe I'm like overestimating how much of a problem this will be, but I'm not exactly super excited about Vol Flicker Strike, only because of the fact that it doesn't do damage until it's over. So a little weird. We don't know pretty much anything about the rest of these. Interestingly enough, I know Kobe will be happy about Vol Venom Gyre, but he'll probably be sad about, you know, some other things being nerfed. We have Vol Molten Strike. I'm curious to see what happens there. Vol Caustic Arrow. This is the one that I think I'm the most interested in. I'm very curious about this. And then we've got Vol Smite. I'm wondering if Vol Smite's going to be like an extra powerful version of it, because already some like Aura Stackers and stuff use this as like a bonus ability to do more damage. We'll see what that is. Big change, we got a fracturing orb. So no longer are you going to be able to fracture items through harvest. You're now going to be fracturing them through a fractured orb that is going to drop in fragments, specifically from Harbingers. Harbingers are definitely going to be worth farming. Going to make a video about that soon, TM. And of course, the Fracture Shards. They've added in a bunch of new uniques, a bunch of new divination cards, some new Atlas memories, which are pretty cool, some other stuff. So let's jump into it. So we've got the Atlas changes. Now, we talked about a lot of this. There are a bunch of maps that are being shifted around, which is, you know, about the same. There are some good maps that are coming back. We've got Burial Chambers coming back. Channel is going to be replacing the Waterways that's leaving. We've got City Square, notably. notably. Iceberg is always fun, and beyond that, a couple other decent maps. However, there are some maps that are leaving. Notably, we'll never have to worry about Bramble Valley this league, thank goodness. It's the worst map that there is, essentially. I hate that. We're losing Jungle Valley, so that is kind of bad. We're losing Park, we're losing Penn, we're losing Racecourse. I actually don't care that much about Penn, but we do care about losing Racecourse. So there are a couple that we're losing that are a little bit unfortunate. So they've shifted around where you can get a lot of the divination cards and stuff like that. Nothing too powerful there. Now, we have already talked about Arch Nemesis in a previous video. Arch Nemesis is essentially being removed. This is going to be good, I feel. It is definitely the best of both worlds, I feel, at this point. If you're interested in seeing my thoughts on that, make sure to go check out my video about the manifesto on this, because nothing really is different overall when it comes to that. Same thing about Eldritch Altars. Nothing really has changed too heavily. It's about the same as it was from what we knew before. Nothing really has changed there. And now we move on to the Atlas Tree. So Atlas Tree is getting some pretty big changes. One major thing that they are trying to do here is they're trying to make it so that you don't have that situation where it feels like you need to swap your Atlas Tree between like a bossing Atlas Tree and a farming Atlas Tree. You should really just be able to have like one Atlas Tree and focus on that. So what they've done is they've taken all of those like bonuses that you could get from the Atlas Tree that would apply to like specific bosses, and they have just baked those into the bosses. This is one of the better changes that I think that they've made this patch, realistically. So now you can just do all of those bosses as much as you want, and the only thing that you need to spec into is like the Uber version of it, which I still have my qualms and my problems and whatever about the Uber bosses and the way that like the interest fee and all that kind of stuff. I made another video about that if you're interested in hearing about that. But, you know, this is at least a step in a good direction, I feel. They've also added a bunch of extra clusters and tweaked some of the current clusters. I'll make a video talking, I know I basically said I'm going to make videos for like the entirety of this everything so far. But when the new Atlas Tree comes out, I'll make a video talking about my thoughts with that. There is also notably a new Keystone passive that causes scarabs using your map device to provide an increased pack size rather than their usual modifiers. So what this means is that, you remember how you just used to have all those kind of useless scarabs that no one cared about? You gather all those up, you take this Keystone passive, and you just start using them for pack size. Seems pretty good to me. So we're not really going to talk about jewel and ailment mitigation. There were a couple new unique jewels that were revealed that do some pretty interesting things here. Notably, there's one that makes it so that like the duration of all elemental ailments on you is affected by how long ignites last on you. So if you have that jewel on, you can bring your ignite duration to 0, like 100% reduced ignite duration on you, and you are essentially immune to elemental ailments. It did say elemental ailments, so that should cover all of them, which is pretty solid if you can get, you know, 100% reduced duration of ignite. Now, my first pretty big problem here. I kind of assumed that this might be an issue, but if you remember where they were talking about how they wanted to make it so that unique jewels are very good and they are, you know, like highly rare and desirable, well, they've removed a bunch of jewels. And unfortunately, on one build that I was actually planning to league start, I was going to do Steel Champ this league, and Lord of Steel is just gone, supposedly. It's nowhere in here. I did like Control F Lord of Steel, and there's nothing in there. So yeah, I'm a little bit worried, because there's another problem that happens later that we'll talk about, but Steel Champ kind of in a weird spot. You can take the Mastery, and that's going to be fine early on, but there's one other bigger problem that we're going to run into with Steel Champ. We'll talk about that in a minute, though. So they have kept Inspired Learning, Intuitive Leap, Lionized Fall, Might of the Meek, Pure Talent, Unending Hunger, and Unnatural Instinct. Weird that they kept this one, if I'm going to be real with you. And then they have all of these jewels that will be obtained through corruptions. Keep in mind, if a jewel in this list is important to your build, this is a nerf the fact that they are corruption only outcomes, because what this means is that you can't get like a specific implicit easily on this, particularly corrupted blood immunity. So if you used one of these jewels previously, now you cannot get it with corrupted blood immunity unless there's like some kind of divination card or something that will do that, because you're not going to be able to, I guess maybe unless you like double corrupt a normal jewel, but I actually don't know that you can even use the double corrupt altar on jewels anymore, because there was something about that in here. We'll see, but a little bit worrisome. And the only replica jewels that are going to exist anymore is replica Primordial Might and replica Reckless Defense. So yeah, replica any other jewel gone. Kind of sad for minus mana cost, which is going to be pretty rough. They have now said that the golem jewels are from a more deterministic source. That feels a little weird that they just don't tell us where they're at. I hope that we figure that out quickly for anybody who wants to play with the golem stuff. They have also told us that there are 6 new vendor recipes for Dead Reckoning, Endless Misery, Spirit Guards, and the 3 combat focused unique jewels. Honestly, it's kind of frustrating that they're just going to have us figure out these vendor recipes, because basically if you needed any of these jewels for your League Start build, well, you're screwed and there's nothing that you can do about it. Good luck figuring them out. And then also, as it says, ancient orbs in the altar of sacrifice in the Temple of Atzoatl can no longer be used on unique jewels, flasks, or maps. So a little bit rough. And the bestiary recipe that creates a unique jewel has been changed. It now creates a rare talisman. So they're really making it so that these jewels are going to be much harder to get. They said, we've also rebalanced some unique jewels and compensated for the loss of specific jewels in the form of new modifiers or skill changes. I'd really hope that they take a look at steel skills, but maybe they just feel they didn't need it, even though, you know, the jewel was really solid. Lord of Steel, rest in peace, but what can you do? Most of this doesn't really matter that much. Frostblaze has gotten some changes, but I mean, it's just, you know, it lost the jewel. Among the other things that were in here, don't really care too much about this. However, we do get 2 to 3% increased mana reservation efficiency of skills now, which is pretty good. I expected this to be 1 or 2, so 2 to 3 is pretty solid. You can now expect that pretty much every super high-end build is going to want life, mana reservation efficiency, and whatever crit multi that they need. It's probably just going to be the standard now. Jewels are going to be even harder to get very good versions of. Expect those to cost many divines. So this is continuing we have removed unique jewels from pretty much everywhere. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about curses. In general, the vibe that I got when reading through here is that they took all of the good curses, they nerfed them a pretty decent amount, and then just made it so that curses in general are better. So what this feels like, I haven't like ran the numbers or anything, but someone will eventually do that. But the vibe that I get is that the curses that were previously very powerful, and we'll go down here and figure out which ones those are if I can find them. Yeah, so like right here. So like you'll notice things like punishment now causes enemies to take 30% increased damage on low life, which was previously 40, and 58% at level 20, which was previously 78. So now on super high-end bosses, these curses are significantly more effective, but they nerfed the ones that were powerful. Now, this will probably end up being a slight buff, but I mean, they just decided to go at all of the popular ones. You know, we're talking punishment, LE weakness, flammability, frostbite, conductivity. Temp chains got some changes and such, but they went pretty much after all of those. Other things having to do with curse, we know about most of this. They changed some uniques. There's nothing super impactful in here as far as I can tell. They talk about the different like curse supports and everything. We're not really going to go super deep into this. I talked about it previously because like I said, I'm not super proficient with the changes that are happening with curses. Just know it's going to be a slight buff for the ones that were already powerful, and the ones that were not powerful previously are getting a pretty substantial buff. They'll probably be in line with most everything else at this point. Occultist did get nerfed. I talked about that in a previous video. It's not massive nerfs, but it still is kind of like, you know, they lost Malediction, which is a big amount of DR and other things, so that's pretty rough. They have tried to buff Temp Chains and Enfeeble a little bit. I think if you have a much higher curse limit, these are actually going to be much more useful to use, but they're not massive buffs from what I can tell. Like it's going from like 14 to 18, but it's losing the quality increased effect of the curse, so I mean, it's not a massive buff, but it should be pretty decent, especially with them having full effect on bosses now. So Temp Chains and Enfeeble will probably be actual usable curses. Supposedly with this vulnerability change, this like ailments inflicted on cursed enemies deal damage 20% faster apparently never worked in the first place, according to a Reddit thread, so that's kind of funny. But these two have been nerfed rather substantially, so they'll probably about wash out with what they previously were on bosses and such, but yeah, they really brought these back down to even with the rest of the curses. Don't expect these to actually get pretty much any extra damage, maybe a tiny bit. Now, let's talk about these new in-game unique weapons. This is one of the things that I was not expecting, but people have been asking for quite a while. However, there is a problem here. So when Chris was talking in like the Q&A with Ziggy and talking in like the reveal and everything, he mentioned that the unique weapons, they wanted them to be extremely iconic and rare, right? But the rarity tier that he kind of talked about is he wants these to feel like Headhunter or Mageblood, and that worries me. Because when you invoke those two names, you basically are telling people 99.99% of the player base are not going to have these items, right? Everyone except for like a handful of people are just not going to have these items. And I really hope that he was over exaggerating here. I hope that these are a lot more obtainable than just like only mirror tier type Andes are able to afford them, because there's a lot of cool stuff in here. We'll go through each one of these particularly. Edziri's got a huge buff. Now, notably, the plus 2 to level of socketed support gems was never super useful because support gems don't scale with levels super well. However, it now is going to have 30% to quality of socketed support gems, which is massive, especially for alt qualities. On top of that, it does have a bunch of added physical damage now. It got 100 to the base and 100 to the top of the physical damage added. That is pretty solid, and it's got plus 10 to weapon range. Insane. So Edziri's seems like it's going to be pretty powerful, specifically because of this 30% to quality of socketed support gems. Beano's got just like a physical damage upgrade, and they took the damage over time away from it. I don't know that this makes it better. It's probably okay now, but I don't know that anybody will be really going out of their way to just use like a Beano's that does a bunch of extra damage. Maybe, we'll have to see. I feel kind of the same way about Bloodseeker. Bloodseeker was one of those claws where you just kind of used it because it was easy to get until you were able to upgrade to a proper weapon. I don't know that this is gonna fix anything because like it does do some more damage, right? And it's got some added phys damage and such. It's just a good physical weapon. But if this is like Headhunter rarity, I don't know that anybody's even gonna use it. Hopefully it's not that rare. We'll see. Divinarius kind of feels the same. It's got some good stats on it, but I don't really think anybody's gonna use it. I mean, definitely if you find it, it's like gonna be a good weapon, but there's so many weapons that are just significantly more impactful for certain builds that a weapon like this, I mean, it's good. Crit chance if you've killed recently is only good while clearing, and then crit multi if you haven't killed recently is only good while you're fighting a boss, but a lot of bosses have like, you know, extra mobs and stuff that happen within the fight. It's just kind of a maybe a too specific of an item. Now, Essentia Sanguis, yeah, maybe could be good because they got rid of the 50% reduced maximum recovery per energy shield leech, and they've added 1 to 500 to 600 lightning damage. That's a lot. This weapon could be pretty solid. It's no longer a physical weapon at all. It's just an elemental weapon, but that's not a bad thing. This could be pretty good depending on how rare it is. Notably, the Kingmaker has been put into this list of becoming significantly more rare. Nerf to Animate Guardian, essentially, is all that this is. I don't know that 300 to 360% increased physical damage over what it had previously will make it a usable weapon for non-Animate Guardians, and Animate Guardians aren't really attacking ever meaningfully, so it doesn't really matter there. So that's kind of just the nerf. Katava's Feast is going from level 25 melee splash to level 30 melee splash. If they make this axe super rare because of that, like Omega Lol, I don't know what to tell you. That doesn't make it good. So little strange that this is even in there. Like this feels like a +2 to cleave buff. If I remember correctly, I don't think Lionized Glare has crit, right? Yeah, so Lionized doesn't have crit. It's got some attack speed. It's got hits can't be evaded and far shot, which is all cool. But the problem here is it has no crit. So a 5% base crit, most bow builds that you're going to be like spending a lot of money on to get like a really good bow, they're really going to want a weapon with crit most of the time, I feel. It's not always, but most of the time. So the main issue I have with a lot of these is that if they are as rare as they're saying that they're supposed to be, like if these items cost a lot of money, they're just going to kind of get outclassed by things that are just simply better, like better rares and such. So I really feel like some of these they should have made like insanely powerful for what is the supposed rarity. I really hope that I'm wrong with the rarity here, but I just remember Chris like invoking the name of Headhunter and Mageblood. So hope that's not the case. Marohi Eriki, not going to be better by getting a couple like 100% increased fizz. The Savior, this is the one that I was upset about. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be like, but Big Ducks, that's a buff to Steel Champ. Why would you be upset about the Savior getting a buff to damage? 150% increased physical damage is going to be great. Your damage is going to go up, right? Yeah, but you know what? Like, if you League start Steel Champ, one of the first like big items that you want to try to go for is the Savior. And if they have massively increased the rarity of this, you're not going to be able to get it. You're not going to be able to afford it. It's going to be substantially more expensive. That's not good. That just means that the build isn't League startable, because if you can't get a hold of a Savior early on, what do? You just stick with Terminus Est until forever? I mean, it's like they already took away Dreadbeak, so you can't use Dreadbeaks now. The Savior becoming significantly more rare is rough because that basically kind of like halves the damage of the build almost. It's really, really rough. I'm questioning. Because I was gonna League start Steel Champ, but I'm kind of questioning that now because Lord of Steel is gone, so that means that we're not gonna have like access to that jewel. And then on top of that, the Savior is becoming significantly more rare. Hopefully they give us some clarification on this, because if these two changes go through and we don't get any of those effects, I don't know that I can League start Steel Champ. It's been good for a long time still, but pretty rough. Soul Taker has gotten buffed. I still don't know that anybody will be using this. I almost feel that they just did this so that they could like make it so that Kingmaker was more expensive or something like that. You can't get Replica Soul Taker, rip. However, Starforge has been buffed, which is good. It's being brought back up to 400 to 450 increased physical damage. Actually, what was Starforge Pewee? What was Starforge previously? Starforge was 200 to 300 now. It was previously 400 to 500. So is it actually still not better than it was previously? Wait, it's not even unnerfed. Because previously it was 400 to 500, and it had all the same stuff on here. Has it not even been fully unnerfed? That's kind of disappointing, actually. I never checked those numbers, but it looks like it just hasn't even been fully unnerfed. Okay, well, that's actually a little unfortunate. Veranostra has gotten a little buff. We'll see if that's usable now. Void Forge is getting 700% of weapon physical damage, but it is losing some of its like base physical damage increase, so I don't know how big of a buff this actually is. I'm curious to see the numbers when they get ran on this, because this seems it's like potentially insane, but maybe it's not that insane because it's losing like the increased physical damage, but I don't know. All I know is that Voltaxic Rift is getting a lot of lightning damage, and it's getting full chaos conversion now. So Voltaxic Rift is seemingly pretty good. Okay, so they're giving us some more sources of mitigating monster life regeneration. This is notably a problem like when you have Maven influence on your map, or have Maven like witnessing a map, and she, you know, just gives like the bosses like extra life back and such. So now this should be a little bit less of a problem, because there is going to be a god power that you can get with the Soul of Rislatha, which will make it so that they have reduced life regeneration, or, you know, you could just slot in a Frost Bomb. So it's cool that there's some extra ways to go about it. They're changing strike skills a little bit, in the sense that Tribal Fury is no longer going to give strike skills target one additional nearby enemy. It is going to be in a mastery now, which is really good, because that strike skill thing was pretty important to have. This being in a mastery is really solid. It's just unfortunate that the ability that most people probably would have wanted to use this with was Lightning Strike, and got some bad news for you here in a little bit in that regard. However, they've made it so that Tribal Fury now is going to give melee strike skills deal splash damage to surrounding targets. So that's pretty cool. That means that you can most likely drop melee splash as a link. Say if you're like on Flicker Strike or something like that, and you want like melee splash or any other strike skill that wants melee splash, you can drop that as a link and just take Tribal Fury now, which is pretty good. So it finally happened. Pious Path got nerfed. Inquisitor got nerfed. They nerfed the 50% increased effective consecrated ground you create. Notably, this is only really gonna matter particularly for the fact of like keeping up RF, which is the main reason that Inquisitor was even good with Pious Path, and the effect of like reduced curse effect that you got from the increased effect of consecrated ground. So it is a pretty big nerf, but it's not a massive nerf. It should still be somewhat okay. But yeah, definitely a little unfortunate. I don't think that the Inquisitor needed this nerf. I genuinely really didn't. I didn't think that RF was that powerful. It was just a good build with a good guide. But yeah, I didn't think it needed that big of a nerf. However, they took Spectral Helix out back and gave it 2 shots to the back of the head. Like its effectiveness of added damage went from 250 all the way down to 150. They hit this ability hard. Like added damage, pretty rough. Lightning Conduit also got a pretty massive nerf. Its top end damage went from 500 to 1500 down to 400 to 1100, and its effectiveness of added damage went from 190 to 140. These got hit hard. So Lightning Conduit made it one whole league. It'll probably still be okay, but I don't know if it'll be like worth going out of your way to play now. I'm not 100% certain, but it'll probably still be fine. Spectral Helix was already an annoying ability to play, so the fact that it's been neutered so insanely heavily, yeah, pretty much just don't play this ability anymore. Don't subject yourself to the pain anymore. You don't have to. Lightning Strike, you can't clear with Lightning Strike pretty much at all anymore. I feel like if you want to clear with Lightning Strike, you almost have to do like GMP in the link now, because they took 5 projectiles at max level. So it is now 2 additional projectiles at all gym levels. It used to be 4 to 7, now it's just 2. The alt quality no longer gives additional projectiles, and the lab helmet enchant also has reduced amount of projectiles. So you have lost 1 projectile here, you've lost 2 projectiles here, and you've lost 5 projectiles here. So you have 8 less projectiles than you did previously. That's a pretty big nerf, honestly. A pretty big nerf to clear for lightning strike. Single target, seemingly the same. So I mean, if you can get enough projectiles to make it work, it should still be okay. But we'll revisit that moment here in just a second when we talk about the change that happened to Nightblade. However, Divergent Second Wind, you can quote me on this. I think there's going to be a crazy build that is very broken because of this new alt quality. So previously what this did is it caused you to regenerate 1% of life over 1 second when you use a supported skill, right? Now it's going to make it so that you just instantly recover 1% of life when you use a supported skill. I can imagine that there's going to be some kind of like ability where you get like a bunch of extra quality and you're just proccing this constantly, like 10 times a second or something, and you're just instantly recovering tons of life. I think somebody's probably going to do it. We'll see what happens though. Onslaught is a buff now, and it is affected by buff effect. That's cool. That's awesome, because Onslaught is now a lot more powerful. Potentially, if you can get buff effect as a raider, we'll see. Who knows? Now, Withering Step and Elusive, this is pretty big. One of the main reasons that like Nightblade was really good with like Lightning Strike and Elusive and all that kind of stuff is the fact that you could use Withering Step to reset Elusive, right? Unfortunately, Withering Step can no longer be used while already elusive. So this change shouldn't affect builds that don't have ways to gain elusive outside of Withering Step. But yeah, so you're not going to be able to spam Withering Step to reset elusive. Yeah, Nightblade kind of got axed a little bit, unfortunately. The Ancestor Totem Mastery thing is kind of cool. It makes it so that the buff effect lingers for 3 seconds, means you have to use the ability less often, so that's cool. Tainted Orbs of Fusing are being returned to what they were previously in Scourge League. That means easy 6-link corrupted uniques early on in the league. Fracturing Orb is basically just a replacement for the Harvest Fracturing mod. You're going to be able to get it through here. I don't know what this change to Sirius's Arena makes. They just said like the Deatomization Storm doesn't like mess up decorations anymore. They're making a Sludge Monster boss, the second phase, which is terrible, which nobody should ever visit the second phase. Just kill the boss faster. That's the best way to deal with this boss. They're making it a little bit less annoying. They're nerfing Bestiary Party Play, so you're not going to just be getting like infinite amounts of beasts anymore when you do like big 6-man parties. This essentially just means that the price of beasts is most likely going to go up. They have randomly nerfed the fact that you could get unique maps out of Carrick, which is kind of unfortunate. They've nerfed some stuff on the trade website that people were abusing. Completely the useless thing about rogues markers. They've changed a few things about monster balance. Already knew the Carrick mods were available. Delirium is here for 10 chaos. That's pretty good. Harbinger is here for 6 chaos. That's also pretty good. And Ritual is here as well. We got a lot of decent ones. These are pretty decent this league. They've made a bunch of quality life user interface changes. These aren't anything too insanely crazy. Notably, like when you do beast crafting for Flasna, you can actually see what they do. It took long enough, if I'm going to be real with you. And that is pretty much gonna be it. As I said, I'll make more videos about all of the other things that are going on, but from the patch notes, I mean, a lot of stuff got nerfed. A lot of big builds got hit pretty hard. So I know people aren't going to be super happy about that. There's not really a lot of like skill buffs or meta shakeups that are going to happen besides the fact that these abilities are getting nerfed. We got some new abilities and such, but I'm not super excited about them because one is like a 2-handed melee skill that's a spell that's kind of weird, and the other one is a slam. So, I mean, patch notes don't look amazing, but there are a lot of big major game changes like the Arch Nemesis change and things we already gone over, which are solid. So I give the patch notes like maybe a 5 out of 10. They're okay. There's some decent stuff in there, but I'm not like super hyped about them. However, let's hope that a lot of the stuff that is going to be changing here soon is a lot better. And I do, as always, want to give a shout out to all my patrons. Thank you for supporting each of these videos. If you want some extra perks when it comes to Path of Exile stuff, make sure that you go and subscribe to my Patreon down below at patreon.com/bigducks. You can find a link in the description. And remember, boys, if you're enjoying this content, make sure to give this video a like, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit that notification bell to stay up to date with all the latest videos, and stay safe out there in Ray class. And I'll see you guys in 3.20, The Forbidden Sanctum.